Welcome to Nobody Knows Her, a place for the people rebuilding themselves quietly, the people grieving identities nobody else noticed they lost, the people learning that freedom is not becoming someone new, but finally allowing themselves to exist. This episode is called In Search of Freedom. I used to think freedom was a location, a city, maybe a plane ticket, a different life. I thought freedom was waking up somewhere and nobody knew my name. Because when you grow up in a small conservative place, your identity is often decided before you even discover it yourself. People tell you who you are long before you get a chance to ask how a woman should behave, what success should look like, who deserves respect and who deserves love, what kind of future is acceptable. And eventually, you stop questioning it. You just learn how to survive inside it. I was born in a small conservative place where individuality often felt like rebellion. Growing up there, I constantly felt out of place, like I was living inside expectations that never truly fit me. I used to believe that if I could just leave, everything inside me would finally make sense. For years, I imagined freedom as a destination. I would manifest it constantly, dreaming about a life where I could finally breathe, finally be alone with myself, finally feel understood by the world and by my own soul. And I think that's why so many people dream of leaving home before they even understand themselves, because they confuse distance with freedom. I know I did. When the opportunity finally came and I moved to America at 19, I believed my life was beginning. And in some ways, it was. For the first time, nobody knew me. Nobody had expectations attached to my name. Nobody knew my past. Nobody knew who I'd been trying to become for everyone else. And for a moment, that felt liberating. But the strangest part was realizing that freedom did not feel the way I imagined. Instead of instantly feeling whole, I felt confronted by myself in a way I never had before. Because when you remove all the noise, all the people, the expectations, you are left alone with who you really are. And that can be both liberating and terrifying at the same time. What nobody tells you about freedom is this: you can leave a country and still emotionally live inside a prison. Because survival follows you, especially as an immigrant. People talk about learning a new language, but they don't talk about learning how to edit yourself, how to soften your accent, how to explain your humor, how to make yourself easier to understand. You have to be less emotional, less intense, less boring. And eventually, you become very good at adapting, but terrible at recognizing yourself. I think immigrants carry a very specific loneliness, a loneliness that comes from constantly translating who you are, your words, your emotions, your personality, even your pain. And after a while, you start wondering, who am I when nobody from my old life is here to remind me? That question terrified me because I realized how much of my identity had been built around performance. Performance for acceptance, for love, performance for survival. And the scary part is sometimes people reward you for abandoning yourself. The hardest thing about losing yourself is that the world often applauds you while it's happening. I spent years trying to become easier to love. I wanted to become prettier, calmer, smarter, more understanding, more patient, less emotional, less difficult. And every version of myself I created got further away from who I actually was. But I didn't notice it at first because when people finally accept you, you don't realize the acceptance came at the cost of authenticity. And I think that's why so many people stay trapped in lives that don't fulfill them because acceptance feels safer than freedom. Freedom asks questions that survival never does. Freedom is going to ask you, what do you actually want? Not your family, not your society or your relationship, not the version of yourself built out of fear, just you. And honestly, that can be, again, terrifying, especially after heartbreak, because heartbreak doesn't only break your heart, sometimes it destroys the identity you build around another person. And suddenly you have to meet yourself again, not as somebody's partner or somebody's daughter or the good girl that everyone wants to see, not as the strong girl that, made it, not as the version everyone recognizes, just you. And I think that's one of the loneliest experiences a person can go through. Meeting yourself without distraction, without validation or performance, without someone else telling you who you. There's this idea online that healing looks beautiful, but whoever has gone through it knows that it's not that beautiful. Like, candles or journaling, solar dates, sunset, lattes, aesthetic routines. And sometimes it does. But real healing also looks like confusion. Looks like crying on a random Tuesday and, grieving people who are still alive. It looks like feeling completely disconnected from yourself, like outgrowing lives you once prayed for. Real healing is uncomfortable because growth requires honesty. And honesty changes everything. You're going to start realizing maybe, I wasn't happy. Maybe I was just accepted. Maybe I wasn't in love, or maybe I was just afraid of abandonment. Maybe I didn't lose myself in relationships. Maybe I lost myself trying to avoid rejection. Some people don't lose themselves in love, they lose themselves in the fear of not being loved. I think about that a lot, especially as a woman. Because women are often taught to shape themselves around other people's comfort. Be likable, understanding, soft, be less, always less. And after years of shrinking yourself, you don't even realize how disconnected you've become from your own instincts. You stop asking, what do I feel? And start asking, how do I make everyone else comfortable? That's not freedom, that's survival. And survival can look very normal from the outside. You can be successful, beautiful, productive, desired, and still feel emotionally absent from your own life. I know that feeling. And maybe you do too. Maybe you've spent years performing versions of yourself just to belong somewhere. You've stayed in spaces that were destroying you because loneliness felt scarier. Maybe you've outgrown people who only love the version of you that stayed small. Maybe you're exhausted, not physically, emotionally, spiritually. Exhausted from carrying identities that no longer fit you. I think freedom begins very quietly, not loudly or dramatically. It begins the moment you stop betraying yourself just to keep other people comfortable. The moment you stop apologizing for who you are becoming. The moment you realize not everybody will understand your transformation, and maybe they're not supposed to. It begins when you stop needing everyone to understand the person you're becoming. That sentence changed something in you. Because I spent so much of my life trying to explain myself, trying to be understood or to be accepted everywhere. Now, I think peace comes from acceptance within yourself first. Not perfection, not certainty, just honesty. Honesty about who you are, what hurts you, what no longer fits you, what you deserve, what you're no longer willing to abandon yourself. And maybe that's what this podcast is really about. Not becoming perfect, becoming real. Slowly, messily, honestly, altogether. And again, I used to think freedom meant escaping a place. Now I think freedom means returning to yourself. And maybe that journey feels unfamiliar at first. Maybe people stop recognizing you. Maybe you stop recognizing yourself. But maybe becoming yourself was never supposed to feel comfortable immediately. Maybe freedom always begins with grief. The grief of realizing how long you survived without truly living. This is Nobody Knows Her, and maybe this is what freedom sounds like.